want to talk today about something that's important to every leader's life, and that's actually living what we teach and preach. I want to talk about living on mission, because we're often encouraging our people to fulfill the Great Commission, go live out the mission of Jesus in our lives. And that's kind of like a mantra for leaders. And the reality is we need to lead the way in living out what we teach and preach. So today I want to talk about the blessed rhythms. You may remember that in the Old Testament, God said to Abraham, the father of the nations, that the nations will be blessed through him. And we're going to take that idea of the word bless and give it something very practical. We're going to use the letters like an acrostic, and each letter is going to remind us of a way that we can be a blessing to others. For example, let's start with B. We're going to begin with prayer. Prayer is the place to start. When we pray, God works. When we work, we just work. And we need more of God's work in our lives. So we begin with prayer, and I'll go into more depth there. But L is for listen. We want to listen before we talk. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, after all. And by the way, listening might be the most neglected superpower for a leader, because when we listen, it's so much like loving that people are willing to share and be open and talk, and we need to get them into a conversation before we can have their heart open up to Jesus. So we listen. And then we eat. This might be everyone's favorite part, right? So we find a way to eat together. It could actually be just having a coffee. It could be out sitting in a fire pit. It could be at a restaurant. It might even be in your home. But when we're eating, it gives just a different ambiance and nuance to our conversation. It makes it a little bit more relaxed. People tend to lean in a bit more, to trust a little bit more. And actually, you have a little more time to unpack your subject. So I encourage you to eat with neighbors, friends, and relatives. It's something you do anyway. You don't have to add more to your time when you eat. So let's learn how to make the most of our time. Then there's the first S of the word bless, and that stands for serve. We serve others. And ironically, we want to find ways we let them serve us. Whatever the opportunity is, it gives us a chance to talk about why we're doing what we're doing. And then the final S is share. We're going to share our story. We're going to share our story, and then we're going to share the story of Jesus. When we share our story, what we're doing is we're talking about how did we come to know the good news ourselves. And your story is something nobody else really can debate. You know, in a courtroom, an eyewitness account is always the best account, the best witness, the best evidence that you have. So learn to tell your story in the amount of time that you actually have their attention, which isn't long, by the way. It might be 45 seconds, it might be a minute. You can sort of see people's eyes start to kind of move around or dart around if you're getting a little bit long, and that's a good signal for you to close it down and wrap it up. But learn to tell your story with maybe one main thought in an illustration, and then leave them wanting more. And then the final part of that is learn to tell the story of Jesus. We want to be able to tell the good news of Jesus in about a minute's time. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So hopefully this introduction just gives you an idea of what we call the blessed rhythms. And then we're going to unpack every one of these in the episodes that follow and give you a way to think about making yourself available to others that isn't just a speech or a talk or a sermon, but really it's the way you live your life.